Hey, it's your girl Marilyn Shaw, and you're listening to the Live and Share podcast, where I host honest conversations with resilient and successful individuals about how they're navigating their life while remaining committed to their faith. Let's get into today's conversation. Hey, it's your girl Marilyn Shaw, and I told y'all from the beginning, season 3 of the Live and Share podcast has been jam-packed with some incredible guests. And today I have the distinct honor to bring to you all another awesome guest, and I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. So first, let me do it properly by giving you a full introduction. So Ylorie is a brand strategist, speaker, and facilitator with over a decade of experience building and leading personal care and beauty brands, servicing the multicultural consumer. She is a candid, truth teller, wife, mompreneur, and chief connections officer. I like that one. For many of your favorite brands, Ylorie lives a very full life, and most days you'll find her living out her purpose and passion while serving as the vice president of EDEN BodyWorks. Thank you so much, Ylorie, for being on today's episode.
Thank you for having me, Marilyn.
Awesome. So I just want to dive straight in. I love the fact that you are definitely living a full life, and your life became even more fuller in the last couple years with the new addition to your family, your handsome son. So I wanted you to share with us today, what has it been like for you having a son after the age of 40?
After the age of 45, but yes.
45, excuse me. Okay.
Yes, tell your listeners don't do that. Have babies early. You know what? Actually, it's so it was quite a shock for me. I was walking around the city and I was completely out of breath catching the train. And that's just unusual because I was in a running club and, I was fit physically. So I thought, right? And I had really started that journey a few months prior, probably about 30 days before I realized I was completely out of breath and could not walk up the stairs. My husband joked and said, "Could you be pregnant?" I'm like, "No, who's having a baby?" And what your listeners are now about to learn is, we had our challenges and our struggles and our disappointments. So giving you a little background to deviate from this particular story, this chapter, right? We have a son who was born at 24 weeks when I was 39 years old. And that is the first child I have with my husband. We have a bonus child in the house. He has a 15-year-old daughter who, for all intents and purposes, is my child as well. But that son came at 24 weeks. Thought the pregnancy was perfect. I'm still walking around in midi dresses and 5-inch heels. And one day woke up and things just weren't the same. Ended up in the emergency room, stayed in the hospital for about 5 days, and they were like, "We can no longer keep the baby inside of her. It's going to be her or this unborn child." And my husband was like, "You have to save them both because her mom is not here and I'm not going to tell her mother, some tragic story." So had a C-section, emergency C-section. For those of you who are maternal advocates for yourself and others, I wasn't in a space to advocate for myself. It was all still very shocking to me at that time. I'm not going to get emotional, but my voice may crack slightly. But I always tell people the things that you learn, share, so that others don't have to have that type of experience, right? I will say it was traumatic for me emotionally, probably physically too, but I wouldn't have known that until months and years later with subsequent pregnancies. Um, because when you're in an emergency room situation, you don't always get the best OBGYN. You certainly don't always get your OBGYN. So you're really, and I'm using this term not disrespectful to the medical field at all, but you're really on the butcher's block. And so that was, one experience that you learn about later, because at the time, my only concern was keeping this 1 pound, 7-ounce baby that was smaller than the size of my hand alive, right? That's your only concern. And that was our concern for months. Now, subsequently, I did change OBGYNs as I revisited having additional children once I felt like I was in a mental space to have faith instead of fear.
Mm.
Why did the baby come in 24 weeks? We still don't have that answer. I will say though, with this particular son, my now 2-year-old, and I also the 8-year-old is fine. So for those of you who are curious about the 24 weeker, he is 8. He is on the spectrum. He did go through a series of surgeries. He was in NICU for 10 months before he came home. So we celebrated his first birthday as his homecoming. But he's fine. Physically, he is fine. We have our own other challenges for therapies and things like that, with feeding and speech and some other delays that are often associated with sensory and the spectrum. And then we have this 2-year-old who, for all intents and purposes, the pregnancy was perfect, right?
Mm.
Perfect. I was on bed rest. I did have a cerclage early in maybe around 7, 15 weeks. It has to be very early. There's a certain time period where you have to have, and for those who aren't familiar with cerclage, it's basically stitching your cervix shut to avoid early delivery or early labor, right? Because we didn't know. But this time around, one, I educated myself more. I was reading books, but I was reading them more for fun. Oh, I'm going to be a mommy. This is so exciting. The second time around, I read them for education and knowledge. I had a doula the second time around. Women who are in my closest tribe sent me all the tips and things about, to do this, to do that. Like I knew not to wear heels because I didn't know of my situation this time. Like, could the pressure have been something that perhaps triggered? And again, there's so many unknowns. So I don't want to put it on that because there are plenty of beautiful women still wearing heels, still working out, so again, everyone's story is individual. So I don't want your audience to feel like I'm giving them some truths that could be a myth for their particular story. But I was educating myself because I realized I didn't know enough. And perhaps, and I don't live in the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but perhaps if I had known a little bit more, things might have been a different outcome. Now, I also believe that, and for those who believe in this, God doesn't put more on you than you can handle. And so that story is our story to tell. And for whatever reason, we are the mouthpiece and the testimony for our oldest son, who's 8. Now, the similar thing is I get pregnant at 45, and, I'm having this baby over 45. And my first reaction is shock, to the point where I take a pregnancy test while my husband is away. And he's the husband who wants to be there, like is standing at the bathroom door when you're doing So I take it because I'm doing it to prove him wrong, right? To prove the doctor's suspicions wrong. So I do it. It's positive. He's due home the next day. I put it inside of a Ziploc bag with a sticky note on it that says, "You win." Like, and it was such a, and that should just tell you as a female, like, it's not a contest, right? But I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't that I was losing, although somehow in postpartum I lost a little bit of myself. But I'll tell you about that later. Um, but I wasn't in that mindset, and he was so excited, so excited. But I had already had 2 miscarriages. I had already had to terminate a baby with no heartbeat. So I had had some experiences, and it's funny because they say motherhood will make you deal with things that you might not have dealt with or processed or came face to face with or healed from. And I felt like that moment, everything was full circle. So the fear came
Mm.
back, the faith came back, like, Lord, you wouldn't, like, this isn't a joke. God doesn't joke with you, right? Like, you clearly want me to experience something different. And every day I woke up and said that because it would be the hump. It would get me over the hump of every day waking up and going, can I get past week 24? Like that was the,
Mm.
and you're constantly reminded of that. Even though I thought my new doctor, she was just okay, but her staff was amazing. And then ironically, because of the way they're set up, the delivery doctor, I fell in love with him early on. He met me, but he wasn't my day-to-day provider or my weekly. I had to go in weekly thanks to being older and history and all this other stuff. I had to take testosterone shots. I had to do progesterone shots. Sorry. I had to do all these things. But from the moment I met him, I stayed with the practice. Had it just been her, I would have switched doctors yet again. But he was like, there's a reason for the 24 weeks. I'm disappointed that no one went further to find out. But he was like, we're going to get you there. And
Wow.
he made me believe that this pregnancy was going to be so different. And he was absolutely right. I followed every single instruction, like everything he said. I didn't wear heels from the moment I found out. I literally didn't use the stairs past 5 steps. Anything he said, I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe this one's
This
different.
time is different.
Yeah. And guess what? Full term, healthy, happy, vibrant. The blessing that our family, we just didn't know we needed. And also the exhaustion. As any mom will tell you, motherhood is exhausting and rewarding and a blessing and tough, and it's all your emotions rolled up into one, and you don't know which day you're gonna feel what. So that's
Mm.
a long story, but I felt like you have pieces of my background, but for your audience really to get into the insight that the conversations that you want to have, they had to understand how I felt, had to hear it from me, and understand the story that brought us to this conversation right here today.
You know, one thing that stood out to me after your second, your first son, there was that pause, and you mentioned how you weren't sure if you had the faith to go through this process again. And that pause allowed you to build up the courage to go through it, not realizing that your son now, it was different. It was a different process for you. Talk to us for a moment. What was it like for you having to navigate real fear? Because
Mhm.
sometimes people, they will hear have faith over fear, but sometimes it is a process. It's not like a switch that happens overnight, but it is a journey for someone to make that decision to allow faith to guide them instead of fear.
So I grew up in a pretty religious household, and I don't think that doesn't change people's level of faith, because someone could have a stronger level of me and never been experienced or exposed to a church in a congregational sense or anything like that, right? They could just have a different level of passion and purpose or divinity or whatever we want to call it. So um, I don't like to say my faith was tested, but it definitely was challenged. Everything that I knew and believed, it was the why me for a little bit, right? Because I'm just being honest, right? It was the why me. Can I? Am I capable of handling this? Um, is this my only experience in motherhood? Is this what it's going to look like? Um, why and nobody else around me, that was their story? In my immediate family, like it just wasn't everyone else. It seemed so easy. And
Mm.
this path seemed a little bit more challenging, right? Different. So I think the first time I got pregnant after the baby, it was years because I had to be in a safety zone myself. I was protecting and guarding the feelings that I didn't want to feel again, probably. I think that's how to put it. Um, and it was like, wow, okay, shocked and, excited at the same time. And then I'm away on a work trip and I end up in a hospital overnight because I'm miscarrying. I'm at a work dinner, literally, and I'm sitting there
Mm.
and I realize something's going on. I get up to go to the bathroom. I can barely get there and I feel like just gushing. So I just go to the rental car and drive directly to the local hospital, not knowing it could have been trash hospital, right? Which we all know every city has like these hospitals you don't want to go to.
Right.
I think in my mind, I was like, help save this situation. But at the same time, I didn't know, like, could you miscarry and just keep going to dinner like it was okay? Or, I just didn't know. So I did that. I spent the night in the hospital, and my husband's like, I'm coming. And I'm like, I'm out of town. We have, you know, another kid at home. Like, what are you going to do? Jump? I'm here. I'm okay. I am, I'm here. So luckily, someone at the dinner who knows me extremely well from the moment I entered the beauty industry, literally, not to my knowledge, followed me in the car. Like, thought my leaving was weird. Then I didn't come back and happened to go outside, like in the hallway where the restrooms were. There was the front door to this venue. Saw me leaving and went outside to catch me to say, "Hey, are you okay?" And then decided to just follow me in the car because she knew that my personality would not just exit and not say anything and, just leave in the middle of dinner. So she ended up spending time with me almost all night at the hospital. And I'm forever grateful for that. But again, it goes back to, and I've said this multiple times this month because this so resonates with me. Nicole Garner said, "Women need women," and in that moment, I needed her. So,
Wow.
I mean, and again, someone's level of faith might have dealt with the situations very differently. Um, I'm okay with talking about them publicly and even privately when women want to share. They slide in my DMs. I'm over 40. How did you do it? And I'm like, it was natural. No IVF, no hormones, no anything. It was just a complete surprise to me, as well as other people. In the case of one of the pregnancies, we were in Vegas at a work trip, and Courtney, who used to own the Main Choice, came up to me. She's like, "Oh my God, you're glowing. When is the baby due?" I was like, "Baby girl, bye." So I'm like, "Girl, bye. We in Vegas. We having a good time." And she couldn't get it off of her mind. And like a month later, called me and was like, "I think you're pregnant." She was like, I can't get you out of my head. And I was like, "No." And we're close enough. She'd known some things. So I was like, "Ma," she was like, "Humor me. If I'm wrong, Courtney, I'll send you XYZ or something like that." So I was like, "Okay, this is me. Like, girl, I'm about to win this one."
Yeah.
She turned out to be right.
Wow.
And it just so happens that that one did not go full term. But yeah, I was like, "What?" So I think it's always interesting to me that people around me notice it before I notice it. And I'm always like, am I just in complete denial, or am I in la la land living life, or am I just having such a great time at living that I'm like, I don't even notice the small things. And again, that's, like air quotes small.
Right.
So, but that's how the journey has been. It has been, some ups and some downs. Through it all, though, I still believe that this is the journey that God wanted us to be on. So, with that, I have to own it. Um, and I'd like to be a resource to other women, even if it's just for hope, to give women hope. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I think what stood out to me the most was when you shared on Instagram how you knew this was a bigger experience outside of just you and your husband having another child, but that this was a divine moment for you all to be hope for someone else that or that's their dream to see their life becoming a mother, or a dream that, so many circumstances could say no, that this is not possible. But for even for you to have so many no's along the way, that this time it has been different for you. What now that your son is here, what is so different about that experience for you?
Are you kidding? You have toddlers, right?
Not yet.
Okay. I always see you around all the kids at the shows, so I just make assumptions. And here's the funny thing: there's a mothering spirit or gene in all of us. Yeah, clearly, God gave us the capability to be nurturers. Let me say it that way, because not everybody wants to be a mom. I want to be very careful of the words and the energy that I put out. That we all have a nurturing spirit. I think women in general. And I tell people, you don't have to be, and you've seen this in the post itself, you don't have to be the birth mom to be in a role that influences someone from the woman in their lives. It could be an aunt, it could be a godparent, it could be, I have friends who keep our kids that are amazing. So, and there are women who in my life who, for whatever reason, may not be able to have kids. And most of them, it's because of their age. And I would have never imagined that for them, because I feel like at some point they had a different goal, right? So I always tell people to be open. It's about work, about love, about life, about opportunities, is to be open. Be open to the possibilities that don't even look like what you thought they look like. So I wasn't even thinking about getting pregnant. And I hate to say that, because some women are like, she's not even focused on it, not focused on it, and it's not happening. But I also feel like sometimes when you start to pour back into yourself, and I had finally gotten to that point, and you start to radiate the passions and the purpose and the power that you were put here for, then your blessings really overflow in tremendous ways that you just couldn't have ever imagined. So his name is Lennox, because we got engaged when I lived on Lenox Avenue in Harlem. All of our kids have a New York connotation to their name. We have Madison. It's not named after Madison Avenue, but we kind of let her believe that. My husband, actually, I think he has named all three of his kids Austin. Spent some time in Queens. There's an Austin Street. But deliberately, Austin's name means some other things about strength and power and the way he entered the world. But Lennox, for real, is about Lenox Ave, because there was a chance for new beginnings and to give ode to the place where we fell in love, and the place where we decided to keep growing and keep doing life together, right, through infinity. So he has real meaning. He is amazing. Super smart. He's like an old spirit some days and a 2-year-old other days. Keeps you on your toes. He is, again, he's the cutest, and of course we're biased, right? Every parent says that. He's the cutest, the most adorable, talkative, funny. His favorite lines are like, I don't know what happened. We're like, or like, mommy, wake up. You're like, oh. You're like, you go back to sleep. But I could, show videos of him and things like that. And I used to have this thing, like when I was younger, if you're older, you have babies, they're gonna look older. So I was relieved that he didn't. I didn't believe that at this age, right? This last pregnancy, I was just like, let me get to the finish line. Let me not throw up on myself every day. Let me have the energy to enjoy it. Let me not suffocate the experience. And that is very true. And then,
what do you mean by that?
Let me not be so terrified that I miss the joy in the experience. And not just the giving birth, but like, let me not be terrified that I miss the growing every single week, or the nuances that happen along the journey to delivery. Like, you don't want to feel like all of a sudden you're delivering a baby and you spent so much time holding your breath that you don't even remember week 15 or week 20, whatever weeks you want to remember. And if you want to remember none, that's your choice too. But I literally could have been like a deer in headlights in fear the entire time, that I missed all of the blessings of just enjoying it along the way.
Wow. That's a good perspective to have, to actually breathe life into the experience instead of taking all of the air and energy out of it, knowing that this moment is different for you. And I believe that takes faith, to have that type of mindset, to be determined that I am going to experience something new. I'm going to take all the ups and downs that life may try to throw in this particular moment, and to know that I don't have to be imprisoned by what this outcome could look like or what statistics may say that it could be. So to me, that's a pure definition of what faith can do for your life. As we get ready to pull our conversation towards the end, I want you to share with those that are, career driven, ambitious women who are living full lives, that have so many things that are going on in their plate, and they feel like, I don't know if I have the capability to dedicate myself to all of these different passions that you're a part of. And ultimately, what has been your guiding light to be present in all of your experiences that you are afforded to?
I don't believe in balance. Um, Maybe because our lives are unbalanced. I don't know. I believe in harmony, meaning even when you're out of sync, there's an opportunity to get back in harmony, right? So
Mm,
when you're not having enough date nights with your husband and not making sure that in our house, that's the number one relationship. Because if that's not solid, everything else fails, right? In the house. Because if that's broken, it's really hard for kids to learn other things when they're watching you two fall apart. So for us, it's like when there are not enough date nights, when there needs to be a couple trip, when I have to fly my mom in because we need some help and some extra arms because the stress and the anxiety levels are high, whether that's just on me as a mom or us as a couple or even us as a family, like let's do the things that make our lives better. So I think for women who are doing it all, I have been her. I'm probably still her, but I her in my 20s, I don't even know if I could see myself with kids. I could always see myself in a relationship because I like companionship. So I enjoy having someone to do things with. And that could be my girls, which are still a very integral part of my life. In fact, I'm just reinstating girl trips because I'm like, listen, postpartum was another whole awakening for me for depression and finding myself all over again because I'm clearly not the person I was before the last child or probably even the first child. I tell the girls on my team who are under 35, as much effort as you put into your professional lives, if your personal life matters to you and you think it will matter at 50, 60, 70, I suggest you make time to invest in those as well. So I we somehow the generation, right? Our parents and our grandparents had us younger. Then we decided not to do that. But then they also perpetuated the thoughts of you don't need to have kids young, wait, enjoy life. But because you have kids doesn't mean you can't enjoy life. Because you get married young doesn't mean you can't enjoy life. You may enjoy
right,
it better. You don't even know. You don't even know
right.
that, right? So you may enjoy it better. But I think as women, we fall victim to I'm gonna do me, and doing me right now is cool. And living in the present and not waiting for happiness and having joy in today is great. But if at some point, the same way you save for retirement, if you need to invest in relationships so that at some stage in your life you get to this utopia that perhaps you consider a part of your life plan, I would suggest you remain open to the possibility that it can happen sooner rather than later, that you remain open when you're dating. And because he doesn't put the toilet seat down, but does he open all the doors and make you feel secure emotionally, physically, all those other things, spiritually, whatever counts in your list for men. The same way you look for jobs with purpose and passion. I think we have come to believe that we can put off and postpone some things that, I hate to say this, but biologically you can't. And I
Right.
and I look at women who are, at 42, 45, and in my age range over 45, pushing to that 50 end. And if I ask them candidly and if they're honest and I say, I bet you've probably dated two or three guys who at this point in your life you're thinking you could have married. right? But at that point, it wasn't good for you, which is fine. People
Hmm.
mature and change. But do you think you should have spent a little bit more time finding or figuring that out then versus now? And some say yes, and some say no. And, but I think if it's something on your radar, you don't postpone joy.
Mm.
You're always working towards, again, and I use retirement as an example, you save for a house. So why aren't we investing in relationships if that's what we want? Because that's not for everybody. And every relationship isn't marriage. I'm just talking about it could be whatever it is.
The relationship that you have with yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, look, girl, don't get me started on that. But that one breeds into everything else that happens in your life. So I tell people, don't postpone the things that really matter. Find ways to include them. I'm tired. I was tired before the interviews. I was like, you get up, you wake up, you shower, you gotta get 3 kids off to school, you gotta start work, figure out it is Valentine's Day. Luckily, me and my husband, our first date was on February 15th. So I instituted a long time ago. Like, let's celebrate on the 15th so I don't have to get all into the hoopla. The salons aren't booked and I can go get all my stuff done and
I
still be,
like that.
and we don't have to fight for a reservation because all the restaurants are done by then. So we get the best service and the best food, and we get to eat wherever we want at the time we need it to be convenient for us. Doesn't mean we don't give cards or chocolates or whatever today, flowers. But let's make it easier on ourselves to celebrate the love we have around that same time. Now, everybody's different, and I get it. If you a Valentine's Day and you want the flowers, chocolate, candy, make it known. Like, don't have
Right.
me trying to read your mind. Let them know I expect these things.
Right. Right.
You have to read your mind. Whatever your love language is, let them know. If it's gifts, let them know. Mine is service, so let them know. But back to what you said, I think we postpone things in life that matter to us with the thought that time is forever, and we know the saying goes, "Time waits for no man."
No, it does not.
No, and there are plenty
No.
other ways to do it. I mean, shoot, before my husband and I really got serious in our relationship, I had visited doctors about freezing my eggs because I was like, I want to have the option. I don't know if I'm going to be a mom or even that I'll make a great mom. I pray about it. I hope for it. I practice, whatever parenting that I think makes me better. But at the same time, I was like, what if he doesn't come? And I've, spent all these years going through all these people, and then this one doesn't come. Um, if I want to have an option, what does that option look like? Is it surrogacy? What is it? Is it, am I donating my eggs to another woman who maybe she wants to have kids and I've decided that's just not in my book? So lots of options out there. I think we have
Yes.
to always keep our adoption is great, foster parenting is great. Mm, We have to keep our options open. And for those of you who just want to be babysitters because you want to return them, hey, call me. Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Ylorie, for sharing your wisdom through your experience of how your life has transformed and navigating the changes that come along with that, and always remembering to be open, be open, be open, be open to the possibilities of what's available to you in your life, despite the heartache and the disappointment and the challenges and the fears that you experience. Faith opens you to receive a different life. And for you, this time around, it has been different. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. So those that would love to connect with you and Eden BodyWorks, where can they find you?
So you can find me at Brown Girl MKTG. So Brown Girl Marketing, but marketing is not fully spelled out. It's MKTG. And then you can follow Eden BodyWorks at Eden BodyWorks. Also at EdenBodyWorks.com. I do have a website as well, browngirlmarketing.com. Most people hit me up in the DMs for any type of relationship or anything like that. And email. My email and contact are right in my bio.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to today's episode of the Live and Share podcast. Remember, a life worth living is worth sharing. I'm your girl, Marilyn Shaw, and I can't wait to talk to you in the next episode.